Hello, my name is Mrs Finch and I lead Phonics here at Joy Lane Primary School. Today I'm just going to give you a brief presentation about phonics and how we teach reading at school. Okay, so the aims of our session today are to understand how we teach phonics and reading in school, to understand what phonics is, to share information and ideas to help you support your children at home with their phonics and reading. Okay, so synthetic phonics is how we teach children to read by literally sounding out letters in words and blending them together. We also teach tricky words which cannot be sounded out and high frequency words which are decodable and very common. So there are various schemes followed in different schools, but here at Joy Lane Primary School we follow the government publication of letters and sounds. So there's quite a lot of terminology involved in phonics, and the expectation from Ofsted on us as schools is that we model this terminology and that the children also use this terminology. So it might be that children are coming home using some of these words, so it's important for you to understand what they also mean. So the word phoneme is our unit of sound, so the sound that that letter makes. The grapheme is the way a sound is written, so grapheme is another word for letter. Digraph is when we see two letters working together to make one sound. So this sounds like the sh sound with the s and the h working together. Trigraph is the same but using three letters. We also see split digraphs in phonics, which is when a vowel sound is split by a consonant. So you may also know this as the magic E, and it means that the two letters are working together and the children recognise that they work together without actually being next to each other. We have adjacent consonant sounds, so when the letters are really close, but we can hear the individual sounds still. And the word blending is when the children are putting the sounds together to read a word, and segmenting is splitting a word up into individual sounds for writing. Okay, so phonics is quite complex, and it's amazing actually how quickly children learn to read using phonics. So our language system has 26 letters of the alphabet, and these are used to form 44 different phonemes. So there are 44 different sounds in our language system. And then these phonemes, these sounds, can be written in over 120 different combinations. So the example that you can see on your screen is the I sound, and we can see that that is written 4 different ways there. So we use the Letters and Sounds programme to teach the children all of the combinations by the time children leave Year 2. Some children may continue into Key Stage 2, into Year 3, if this is needed. So we have daily teacher-directed phonics sessions, and Phase 1 has actually already begun in preschool settings. So when we're using phonics to help us read, children are taught to use sounds to blend and to chop words. So when we're blending, this helps us read. So d o g, we push that together to make dog. We do the opposite when we are writing. We chop that word up. We already know it's dog, and we have to identify the sounds that are in there and chop them up. Dog, d o g. So something that we use in school to help us with this is sound buttons. So we know that some sounds, some phonemes, have more than one letter. So sound buttons really allow the children to focus on the sounds within the words rather than the individual letters. So you can see on your screen some examples of some sound buttons that we would use. It helps children recognise how many sounds, how many phonemes are within a word. And we obviously use our phonics to help us write, so that's through segmenting. So the children are chopping or clapping the words when they are writing to help them recognise which phonemes are in there. Children often write the sounds that they hear first before learning the correct spelling patterns, and that's completely normal. So an example on the screen of I went to the supermarket to buy some oranges. and that is written phonetically correct. It is decodable. They have used all of the sounds that they know, and it makes sense. However, we do know that that isn't correct. The correct spelling of keywords and the use of correct spelling patterns comes together afterwards as the children progress into Year 2. We do see that the quicker children learn to read for pleasure, and the more reading that they do, the quicker we see those correct spelling patterns begin to emerge. Okay, so as I mentioned before, quite a lot of Phase 1 letters and sounds has already been covered in our preschool settings. So Phase 1 is a lot about rhyming, alliteration, identifying sounds, listening for sounds in the environment. So when the children come to reception, it's when we can start Phase 2. So you can see on your screen our Phase 2 sound map. So these are the sounds, these are the letters that we initially teach children. And you can see that these are not in alphabetical order. In fact, the first 6 sounds that we teach, s, a, t, p, I, n, we call sapin. And the reason we teach these 6 sounds first is despite there only being 6 letters, you can actually read quite a lot of words using them, so the children can begin to practice their blending skills. We can do sat, we can do pin, we can do tap, we can do tin, we can do pit, and so on. We will also be teaching the children to read tricky words within Phase 2. So we start with the, to, I, no, go, and into. So we look at these words together and we identify they're tricky, they're a little bit cheeky. We can't use our phonics to decode them. We just have to remember what they look like. And then your children towards the end of reception will go into Phase 3 of the letters and sounds. So again, they've got a selection of letters, and that's when we start to introduce the digraph or trigraph phonemes to the children. So when they start to understand that sometimes 2 or perhaps even 3 letters work together to make a sound, such as ch in chicken. And again, there is a new set of tricky words for the children to begin to identify and just remember. It's really important that we as adults articulate the phonemes correctly ourselves, that we are using really good modelling. When we use what we call impure sounds, it can make it harder for the children to identify the word they're listening for. When we say things such as m or k, this isn't how we hear them in words, so it's really important that we sound them out correctly. M and k. Here on your screen you should see a YouTube link, and the lady in this video not only explains really clearly about why this is so important, but she then also goes through all of the letters in the alphabet correctly, articulating them for us to be able to ensure that we are modelling them correctly for our children. Okay, so how can you help your child to decode? So we will say each sound in the word from left to right. Blend the sounds by pointing to each letter and then running your finger under the whole word as you say it, so they start to really understand that we're pushing those sounds together. Like I said, familiarise yourself with the different phonemes and the correct pronunciation to make sure that you're modelling those sounds correctly. Help them to identify those tricky words that cannot be sounded out. And work at your children's pace and have fun. The quicker children read for pleasure, the quicker they begin to read with fluency and good comprehension. So what we want are children who enjoy reading. So it's important that we don't put any pressure on them and that we go at their pace. Your child's teacher will decide when they are ready for a reading scheme book. So we identify when those children are starting to understand how to be able to blend to read. And then that is when a book is introduced for you to help your child with at home. These books work through all of the letters and sounds phases, so your children should always be able to recognise the letters that are within that book, perhaps despite not covering the whole alphabet yet. These books are mostly phonetic, so they give them a really good opportunity to start being able to decode using their phonics. Okay, so supporting their reading skills further. We talk about the pictures in the book and encourage children to use the pictures to help them. We like to check their understanding of what they have read through questioning. It's really important that they're understanding what they're reading, not just blindly sounding out and saying words. Talk about their own ideas about the book. Recap on sentences that have been sounded out to support children in their comprehension. It's quite challenging at the start when you're having to really focus on every single letter to be able to read a short word to remember what you actually read at the start of the sentence. Use prompts in the book to develop their understanding and comprehension. So a lot of our reading scheme books, on the very front cover, you'll find questions or ideas or games that you can play that relate to the book that you are reading. And look at and talk about punctuation together, so that they start to understand when perhaps they need to be taking a pause in a sentence, and also that capital letters can look really different to those lowercase letters that they're used to seeing. Phonics is not the only way we are teaching reading in school. We have guided reading sessions, or what we call book talk. So these are whole, sometimes small group or whole class sessions when we really look at books together, we answer questions about them, we look at the way they're written, we look at the punctuation and the photos and the pictures, and enjoy talking about books. Our literacy lessons are quite often focused around books, or quite often be a book hook, and we're using really high quality texts to encourage the children. Reading aloud, the children are read to regularly at school to support them with their reading. Listening to stories can really help develop those reading skills. Shared reading and writing opportunities are also delivered in our literacy sessions with the children. Word recognition, like we said, looking at all of those tricky words and just trying to remember them, knowing that we can't sound those ones out, but I can remember what it says. So on this slide, I've put some websites that you might want to use at home to support your children with their phonics. So there are lots of different online games. Phonics Play is one that we use at school. So the children would be very familiar with the games on there. Teach Your Monster to Read is a lovely, it's an app and a website, and the children literally take their own monster and teach it to read through a variety of games. So that is also a really lovely one to use at home. If you do feel that you need any further help in supporting your child with their phonics at home, particularly when they start bringing home those reading scheme books, please speak to your child's class teacher and they will be more than happy to help you.